Hello everyone. If you are already an electrician outside Canada and you are thinking about moving here, you may have heard this advice. Canada needs skilled tradespeople. Study electrical in Canada, get a work permit, find a job, and eventually apply for permanent residency. But if you already have years of electrician experience, do you really need to come to Canada as an international student and start again? Maybe not, because there are two different questions we need to answer. The first one is, can you immigrate to Canada as an electrician? The second one is, can you become qualified to work as an electrician in Canada? These are not the same assessment. So today, we are going to build a pathway for a foreign trained electrician. From your existing experience to Canadian trade recognition, immigration, apprenticeship, and only where it actually makes sense, Canadian education. So let's build this blueprint. Let's call our electrician Arun. He's 31 years old, has technical electrical training, and more than 5 years and 9,000 hours of hands-on experience outside Canada. His first question should not be, which Canadian college should I apply for? Instead, I would ask, can his experience create a direct immigration opportunity? Can Canada recognize his existing trade experience? And only then, does he actually need Canadian education? The occupation we are focusing on is NOC 72200. Electricians except industrial and power system electricians. I'll take Ontario as our example for this video. In Ontario, we are specifically looking at 309A, electrician, construction and maintenance. And here's something very important. 309A is a compulsory trade in Ontario. So, obtaining permanent residence or a work permit does not automatically mean you are qualified to practice this trade in Ontario. This is the first principle in this blueprint. Your immigration pathway and your professional certification pathway needs to be assessed separately. For someone starting through the Ontario apprenticeship system, 309A involves approximately 9,000 hours of apprenticeship training, combined paid on-the-job experience with technical training. Notice something important. Becoming an electrician is not simply go to the college, graduate, and become an electrician. Apprenticeship and supervised workplace training are fundamental parts of the trade. But Arun is not starting from zero. He already has years of experience. With having those experience, do you have to start over again? Not necessarily. Ontario has a trade equivalency assessment process for experienced workers who did not complete an Ontario apprenticeship. For 309A, an experienced worker needs to demonstrate experience and competencies comparable to Ontario's approximately 9,000 hour apprenticeship standard. But don't interpret that as, I worked as an electrician for 5 years, so Ontario will automatically recognize me. What you actually did matters. So document your experience. Keep a track of things like employment dates, actual hours, detailed duties, electrical system worked on, installation, testing, troubleshooting, maintenance, supervisor or employer verifications, training certificates and licenses. And here's a practical advice for anyone watching from outside Canada. Document this while you are still working in your home country. Don't wait 5 years and then try to find a supervisor who no longer works there or an employer that no longer exists. For Ontario's 309 equivalency process, foreign trained applicants also need to address knowledge of the Canadian Electrical Code through the applicable accepted evidence or training. So, before spending international tuition to repeat electrical education, Arun should first investigate whether the experience he already has can move him towards Canadian certification. There's another assessment people often confuse with trade recognition, the Educational Credential Assessment or the ECA. An ECA might tell IRCC what your foreign diploma or certificate is equivalent in Canada, but it does not make you a licensed electrician. For a regulated trade, the provincial certification process is separate. Now let's look at immigration. NOC 72200 is currently included in Canada's Express Entry Trade Occupations category. Under the 2026 rule, the trade category requires at least 12 months of qualifying experience within the previous 3 years in one eligible occupation, and that experience can be gained in Canada or abroad. But this is where I want you to be careful. Being in an Express Entry category does not automatically make you eligible for Express Entry. First, you need to qualify under Express Entry program. That could potentially include the Federal Skilled Worker program or Federal Skilled Trades program, depending on your completed profile. Then category-based selection becomes relevant. The Federal Skilled Trades program or FSTP is particularly relevant. It currently requires at least 2 years or 3,120 hours of qualifying skilled trade experience within the previous 5 years, along with the program requirements. But there's another major condition: a qualifying full-time job offer for 1 year or a Canadian certificate of qualification in your trade. The second option is one reason Arun's provincial trade recognition research can become very important. But people often look at the first option and say, great, I'll find an employer and get an LMIA. We need a reality check. A genuinely employer-supported opportunity can absolutely change someone's pathway, but just finding an LMIA is not an immigration strategy. A labor market impact assessment or an LMIA exists because a Canadian employer needs a foreign worker and under the applicable process must demonstrate efforts to recruit Canadians and permanent residents first. Think about these two candidates. One is already in Canada, have authorization to work, appropriate trade status are fulfilled, can start relatively quickly. The other candidate is outside Canada, needs work authorization, may still need trade recognition. Employer may need LMIA process. If both candidates can do the job, which one is easier to hire? Usually the one already in Canada. That doesn't mean genuine LMIA supported jobs does not exist. Some employers genuinely cannot find the people they need. But there's a huge difference between receiving a genuine employment opportunity and buying a job offer and paying someone to arrange an LMIA. Don't buy an LMIA and don't build an entire Canadian plan around finding someone who will give you one. There's also an important Ontario update. If you find all the videos recommending Ontario's Express Entry skilled trade stream, be careful. That stream was closed during Ontario's 2026 immigration program redesign. Ontario now has the Workforce Priority System, which includes pathways to Tier 0 to 3 occupations with qualifying full-time permanent Ontario job offers. The employer has to meet its own eligibility requirement. To hire someone outside Canada, Ontario also requires the employer to demonstrate sufficient efforts to recruit a Canadian citizen or permanent resident before offering that position to a foreign worker. So again, a genuine Ontario employer opportunity can become important. But I would not build Arun's entire strategy around finding one. Now finally, let's talk about studying in Canada. So hope you noticed that we didn't start here. Before Arun spends international tuition, I would assess Express Entry eligibility, language, education credential assessment, federal skilled trades eligibility, trade equivalency, provincial certification, genuine employment opportunities. After that, Canadian education may still make sense. Maybe his previous training isn't sufficient. Maybe there is a significant competency gap. Maybe Canadian education genuinely improves his career position. Now we are studying for a reason, rather than assuming every foreign electrician has to start again. For this segment, I will take one educational institution as our example. Fanshaw's Electrical Technique program is one example of one-year program designed to build electrical knowledge and prepare students towards electrical apprenticeship opportunities. But graduating does not automatically make you a 309A electrician. And there's another strategic issue: the postgraduate work permit. For eligible non-master's programs between 8 months and less than 2 years, the postgraduate work permit may be issued for up to approximately the same length as the program. So, one-year program could potentially mean roughly a 1-year postgraduate work permit. During this 1-year postgraduate work permit period, you have to find an employer, enter apprenticeship, gain experience, build immigration pathway. That is a lot to accomplish in a short period. Compare that with an eligible program of 2 years or longer, where the postgraduate work permit may potentially be issued up to 3 years. But don't simply search for a 2-year program with electrical in the title. Electrical engineering technicians and construction electricians are not automatically the same career. Some programs more heavily focus on automation, PLCs, electronics, manufacturing, or technicians' occupations. So, investigate whether the program actually connects the apprenticeship and career outcome you want. And always verify the specific program content, postgraduate work permit, and field of study eligibility before applying. And also, Ontario isn't your only option. An experienced electrician should also compare provincial certification systems. So, don't simply decide, I want to go to Toronto, and then force your career into Ontario. Compare where your qualifications, experience, employment prospects, and immigration options fit best. So here's our final blueprint. Step 1, confirm your NOC. Match your actual duties, not just your job title. Step 2, document your experience. Hours, duties, supervisors, training, licenses, all these matters. Step 3, assess direct immigration. Check your language ability, education credential assessment where applicable, Federal Skilled Worker Program or Federal Skilled Trades Program, or other express entry trades category. Step 4, assess provincial trade recognition, Ontario trades equivalency or compare another province. Step 5, evaluate genuine employment opportunities. Employer support can help. Buying an LMIA is not a pathway. Step 6, only then assess Canadian education. Check the program outcome, apprenticeship connection, postgraduate work permit eligibility, program length, immigration timeline. So, if you're an electrician outside Canada, don't automatically assume that moving here means starting your career from zero. Your foreign experience may have value for both immigration and trade recognition. Sometimes, Canadian education will be the right decision. Sometimes, apprenticeship or additional training will be necessary. And sometimes, the better first move is to assess what you already have. So, instead of starting with which Canadian college should I apply to, start with what qualifications and experience I already have. How does Canada recognize them? And what's actually missing? Then build your pathway around the gaps. That's the purpose of the DACC Blueprint series. And if there's another profession you'd like me to break down this way, leave it in the comments. And I'll see you in the next blueprint.